Ever wondered how medieval peasants caught thousands of fish while modern fishermen struggle with expensive gear? Historical fishing records reveal techniques so effective they could feed entire villages for months using only sticks, stones, and plants. These forgotten methods didn't just catch fish, they turned rivers into food factories, ready to discover fishing secrets that could save your life. 1. Stone circles. Medieval peasants built circular stone formations in shallow rivers and coastal areas that created natural fish trapping environments using water flow dynamics. These installations required careful positioning of large rocks to create circular enclosures with strategic gaps that allowed water to flow through while preventing fish from escaping easily. The engineering principle relied on fish following water currents into the circular areas during feeding or migration, then becoming confused by the circular water patterns that made finding exit points difficult. Construction required community cooperation to move heavy stones and position them precisely to create optimal water flow patterns. Different stone circle designs targeted specific fish species and seasonal behaviors, with some variations, including multiple chambers or funnel entrances that increased capture efficiency. Maintenance involved adjusting stone positions based on seasonal water level changes and clearing debris that could disrupt water flow patterns. The technique worked particularly well in areas where fish naturally congregated, such as river bends, tidal pools, and spawning grounds, where circular currents concentrated fish populations. 2. Basket traps. Medieval peasants cultivated willow beds, specifically for creating sophisticated fish traps that could be manufactured entirely from local wetland resources. The construction process began 3 years before catching a single fish, as young willow shoots lacked the strength and flexibility necessary for reliable trap construction. Harvesting required precise timing during late winter dormancy, when sap levels were lowest, ensuring maximum durability and water resistance. Master craftsmen created 2-chamber designs with large funnel openings, guiding fish into main basket chambers, while internal chambers prevented escape completely. 3. Ice fishing. Medieval peasants developed winter fishing techniques that turned frozen waters into productive food sources when other fishing methods became impossible. The process began with specialized tools for cutting through ice, including iron-tipped chisels and heated metal rods that could create fishing holes in frozen rivers and lakes. Peasants learned to identify optimal fishing locations by reading ice formations, understanding that certain areas maintained fish activity even during harsh winter conditions. Equipment included insulated shelters made from animal skins and wooden frameworks that protected fishermen from freezing temperatures during extended fishing sessions. Bait preparation focused on preserved materials from autumn harvests, including dried insects, salted fish scraps, and specially prepared plant materials that remained effective in cold water conditions. Techniques included both passive methods, using baited lines through ice holes, and active approaches involving spearfishing through multiple holes. Community cooperation allowed groups to cover larger areas simultaneously, sharing successful locations and coordinating efforts. To maximize winter protein procurement when food sources were critically limited. 4. Bird cooperation. Medieval peasants developed remarkable partnerships with fishing birds, particularly cormorants, that created highly effective collaborative hunting systems. The training process began with capturing young birds and conditioning them through careful feeding schedules that associated human presence with food rewards. Peasants learned to place neck rings on cormorants that prevented them from swallowing large fish while allowing them to consume smaller prey as motivation. Hunting expeditions involved releasing trained birds from boats or shoreline positions, with birds diving to catch fish and returning to their handlers for food sharing. Different bird species required specialized training approaches, with some peasants working with herons, kingfishers, and even trained ducks for specific fishing environments. Equipment included specialized boats designed for bird fishing operations and handling gear for managing multiple birds simultaneously. Success depended on understanding bird behavior and maintaining relationships that benefited both humans and birds through consistent food-sharing arrangements. The technique proved particularly effective in areas where traditional fishing methods struggled. 5. Plant stunning. Medieval peasants discovered they could weaponize specific plants by grinding roots into fish-stunning agents that transformed entire The preparation process began with botanical knowledge, passed down through generations. Identifying plants like barbasco that contained maximum stunning power when harvested during dry seasons. Processing techniques involved crushing fresh roots using wooden mallets and stone grinding surfaces, breaking down plant fibers to release concentrated chemical compounds through hours of intensive physical labor. Stream preparation required, coordinating community work teams to build temporary dams using stones, logs, and mud to slow water movement in target areas. Application methods involved strategic placement of prepared plant paste upstream from target fishing areas with teams, positioning baskets at specific intervals across stream width. When applications worked effectively, hundreds of stunned fish would surface simultaneously across large river areas, requiring coordinated collection efforts using boats, hand nets, and woven baskets before fish recovered. 6. Were cities medieval? Peasants built massive underwater fish trapping cities that stretched for miles across rivers and coastlines. These sophisticated engineering marvels used thousands of wooden posts arranged in complex funnel patterns. Archaeological evidence from Essex shows Weir systems with over 13,000 timber posts creating underwater mazes that guided fish into inescapable collection areas, into automatic fishing machines that operated with every tide cycle. Communities invested months building these installations, but once complete, they could harvest thousands of fish daily. 7. Mud channels, medieval collection areas where fish could be harvested efficiently. The construction process involved digging elaborate networks of shallow channels that connected rivers to specially prepared collection ponds or marshland areas. Teams worked systematically to create precisely graded channels that maintained proper water flow, while ensuring fish could easily swim from main rivers into collection areas but found returning difficult. The technique required understanding seasonal water patterns and fish migration behaviors, with channels positioned to intercept fish during specific times when they naturally moved between feeding and spawning areas. Different channel designs targeted various fish species, with some featuring multiple branches that increased capture probability, while others used single direct channels for specific seasonal migration. Maintenance demanded constant attention to prevent channels from silting up or being blocked by debris, requiring organized community labor to clear obstacles and maintain. Fell. Medieval peasants transformed night into their greatest fishing advantage using torch spearing techniques called leasing. They discovered that bright light temporarily blinds and disorients fish in dark water, making them easy targets for specialized multi-pronged spears. Equipment was remarkably simple pine pitch torches and barb spears with 3 to 5 prongs. Designed to prevent fish from escaping, fishermen moved slowly through shallow water, holding torches high while positioning spears for accurate strikes. The technique required years to master because water refraction made fish appear differently. 9. Dam harvesting. Medieval peasants constructed temporary river dams using natural materials to concentrate fish populations in controlled areas where mass harvesting became possible. The engineering process involved building strategic barriers across rivers using combinations of stones, logs, mud, and woven materials that redirected water flow while creating fish collection zones. Construction required precise timing to coincide with seasonal fish migrations. When large numbers moved through specific river sections predictably, teams worked rapidly to build effective barriers before fish populations dispersed, often completing dam construction within single days using coordinated community labor. Collection methods included systematic netting, spearing, and hand capture techniques applied to concentrated fish populations trapped behind temporary barriers. The technique required careful management to prevent fish kills from overcrowding, while ensuring maximum harvest efficiency during optimal collection windows. Dismantling procedures ensured river flow returned to normal after harvesting operations, preventing long-term environmental damage while allowing fish populations to recover between harvesting seasons. 10. Kelp forests. Medieval coastal peasants cultivated and managed kelp forest environments that created natural fish gathering spots, providing both habitat and harvesting opportunities. The management process involved selectively harvesting kelp to maintain optimal density that attracted fish while ensuring sustainable growth for continued productivity. Peasants learned to identify specific kelp species that created ideal fish habitat understanding which varieties provided shelter for different fish types during various seasonal cycles. Harvesting techniques included creating pathways through kelp forests that concentrated fish in specific areas while maintaining overall forest health. Equipment design included specialized nets and traps adapted for working within dense kelp environments without damaging the plants that provided long-term productivity. Seasonal management involved timing kelp harvesting to coincide with fish spawning and feeding cycles, maximizing both plant and fish yields through coordinated resource management. Community knowledge included understanding tidal patterns and seasonal changes that affected both kelp growth and fish behavior. Lines medieval coastal peasants transformed predictable ocean tides into automated fishing systems that worked continuously without human supervision. The construction process required massive community rope-making operations taking weeks to complete, creating main lines that stretched for miles using hemp or flax cordage to position anchor points and drive wooden stakes deep into the seabed. Hooks were attached every 3 to 6 feet along the main line, with each hook requiring individual baiting using shellfish, worms, and small fish collected by dedicated community teams. Deployment timing required precise coordination with tidal schedules, as fishermen had narrow windows during low tide to set lines before waters rose. Retrieval operations began at the following low tide, typically 12 hours later, with systematic work along lines removing caught fish and rebaiting hooks for the next cycle. Multiple line management allowed experienced practitioners to operate dozens simultaneously. 12. Tide pools medieval, coastal peasants transformed natural tide pools into managed aquaculture systems that provided consistent fish production throughout tidal cycles. The enhancement process involved modifying existing rock pools to improve fish retention, while maintaining healthy water circulation during tidal changes. Peasants learned to identify tide pools with optimal characteristics, including proper depth, water circulation, and natural fish populations that could be sustainably managed. Construction techniques included strategic rock placement to create barriers that retained fish during low tide, while allowing water exchange that maintained pool health. Stocking methods involved introducing specific fish species during high tides and managing populations to prevent overcrowding while ensuring productive breeding cycles. Harvesting schedules coordinated with tidal patterns to access pools. During optimal collection times while leaving breeding populations intact, management required understanding seasonal changes that affected pool conditions and fish behavior, including temperature variations and food availability that influenced productivity, that maintained tide pool productivity across generations. 13. River funnels medieval peasants created river funnel systems that narrowed waterways to concentrate fish populations in specific collection areas where harvesting became highly efficient. The construction process involved building strategic, narrowing structures using stones, logs, and earth that gradually reduced river width while maintaining proper water flow. Engineering principles required understanding hydraulic dynamics to create funnels that concentrated fish without creating barriers that prevented natural migration patterns. Different funnel designs targeted specific fish species and seasonal behaviors, with some featuring multiple collection points along the narrowing channel. Construction required coordinated community labor to move heavy materials and position them precisely to create optimal water flow patterns. Harvesting techniques included nets, traps, and spearing methods applied at funnel collection points where fish density reached maximum concentration. Maintenance involved adjusting funnel configurations based on seasonal water level changes and clearing debris that could disrupt flow patterns. The technique proved particularly effective during spawning migrations when fish naturally moved through predictable river sections in large numbers. 14. Spawning traps medieval peasants developed sophisticated trapping systems that exploited fish breeding cycles by positioning collection devices in spawning areas during reproductive seasons. The technique required detailed knowledge of local fish species' reproductive behaviors. Equipment design included specialized traps and nets adapted for spawning environments, often featuring collection chambers that captured fish without disrupting essential breeding activities. Positioning strategies involved identifying natural spawning beds and strategic placement of collection devices that intercepted fish during peak reproductive activity. Timing coordination was critical, as spawning windows varied by species and environmental conditions. Sustainable practices ensured that trapping operations allowed sufficient breeding activity to maintain fish populations while providing food harvests during predictable peak abundance periods. Community knowledge included understanding which spawning areas could sustain harvesting and which required protection to ensure continued productivity. 15. Community drives. Medieval peasants organized large-scale fish herding operations that used coordinated human effort to drive fish populations into controlled collection areas. The organization process required extensive community planning to coordinate dozens of participants. Techniques included systematic herding using noise, splashing, and physical barriers that guided fish toward designated collection points where nets and traps waited. Communication systems included specific signals and timing coordination that ensured effective herding without allowing fish to escape through gaps in human formations. Equipment included portable nets, collection containers, and herding tools that participants could use effectively while maintaining formation integrity. Success depended on understanding fish behavior under pressure and knowing how different species responded to herding attempts. Different drive techniques targeted specific environments, with river drives operating differently from coastal operations that used tidal patterns. The technique required significant community cooperation, but could produce massive food harvests that sustained villages through difficult seasons. Historical context: these fishing techniques represented sophisticated food production systems that sustained medieval populations through harsh conditions. Unlike modern fishing that relies on expensive equipment and fuel, peasant methods used renewable local resources and deep ecological knowledge. These techniques worked with natural systems rather than against them, often increasing fish populations. Through controlled harvesting, these forgotten fishing techniques revealed the remarkable ingenuity of people facing life-or-death challenges with only natural materials and human creativity. Subscribe to discover more medieval survival wisdom that sustained our ancestors for centuries.